On this episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast, we talk about System of a Down
by System of a Down.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we are going to be talking about the debut self-titled album from Armenian, I can't say the words, Armenian American metal band System of a Down.
From Southern California.
And yeah, they're, of course, a very popular, very well-known band, despite the fact that did they ever end up putting out new music recently?
I don't think so. I don't think they did.
For the longest time, it was always between them and Tool of like, we're working on new stuff. And
Tool did.
Yeah, Tool actually did put out new music.
It was okay.
Yeah, it was. That was the consensus.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah,
it's more Tool, sure. But yeah, we haven't really gotten anything, as far as I know, new from System of a Down. But yeah, we'll be talking more about System of a Down later on.
All right,
in the episode. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
That's good.
But dude, I cleaned my kitchen today. I got a new pot.
Kitchen. Yes, you were talking about your new pot.
Yeah, it's great.
You're so excited about your new pot. Look, it's important to be thrilled by the little things.
It is.
It's important to enjoy the little things and appreciate them for the things they can bring to your life. I feel like I need to do that more.
Oh, certainly. I was at Target. And I was there to purchase a candy thermometer.
A candy? Because to put in all the caramels you're going to be making in your new pot.
Exactly. And then I realized, you know what? Dude, I'm a grown man. If I want a new pot, I can just buy one.
I'm just going to buy a new pot.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, what's the difference between a regular food thermometer and a candy thermometer?
I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, a candy thermometer is more it's designed to clip into the inside of a pot.
Okay,
and it's usually labeled with all your different. It's hard ball, hard crack, different.
I suppose because most other food thermometers are designed to be inserted into meat,
right? Something you hold in your hand,
or baked goods, or some such. To measure the internal temperature of a thing that is solid and is going to be able to hold itself. You can stick that in there, and either you're going to be holding onto it or it will just stay put, like a thing you would put in a cake.
Sure. But whereas this is meant to go into a fluid.
Yes. A sticky, viscous fluid, but a fluid nonetheless.
Yes.
A syrup.
A syrup.
A syrup of sorts. Yeah. I don't know
what's going on.
Like some syrup. You're gonna make some syrup. You're gonna make some candy.
It's gonna be delicious.
Oh my gosh, I'm making some confections.
Maybe a brittle.
Southern Kermit the Frog. It's your Luke Bryan impression.
My Luke Bryan impression.
He doesn't sound like Kermit in that way.
No, yeah,
but it is funny to take it to that extent.
Yeah, I love it when people sound like animated.
When people sound like their voice sounds like a character.
Right. Yeah, like with a guy we used to work with, who sounded just like Bullwinkle Moose.
Yeah.
He talked like this. And he was a professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
He went to jail.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Which I kept imagining in my head, just at some point, don't make me shank you, bitch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God. See, those are the ones in prison that you gotta look out for.
Right.
Sometimes it's the goofy guys like, oh, he's a serial killer.
Right. Yeah.
He'll cut your skin off. He'll flay you alive and eat you.
Right. I have a couple of guys I deal cards to like that.
who have weird voices.
Weird voice and just weird demeanor in general. This is one guy. Let's just say his name is always preceded by the word crazy.
That's always good.
There are two people that come in that are crazy. Yeah. Crazy Chuck and Crazy Shelley.
To differentiate them from all the other Chucks and Shelleys.
Yeah. Okay, Chuck was in. Oh, Chuck? Yeah, Crazy Chuck.
Crazy Chuck.
Then there's also Drunk Mike. Which I'm very impressed by somebody who goes into a bar and gets the label drunk, because
that's their epithet.
Yeah, that's their title
amongst the bar crowd. Yeah. He is known as the drunk one.
Amongst all the other Mike was in. Which Mike? Oh, Drunk Mike. Jesus,
yes, Drunk Mike.
Like all the other Mikes aren't drunk. I mean, yeah.
There was a guy when I was in junior high, around the time when everyone started driving. We would fuck around during the noon hour and just like drive around town after we got finished eating lunch.
Sure.
And there was a guy who would walk around in the like trailer court part of town in Washburn. And I don't know why, but his name was Scary Terry. I don't know.
Scary Terry.
Well, I mean, he was kind of a scary looking guy. He was sort of an older fella who was not all there and sort of, in an unhinged kind of manner. And I've always been the type of person where I don't care to antagonize anyone.
Sure.
But the people I would be in the vehicle with were not always quite that way. Mm-hmm. And there was one time we were driving around. I don't remember which one of my friends it was, but he threw like an apple or something at Scary Terry. Mm-hmm. It's like, why? Leave him alone.
Right.
It's like, but we would see him when he'd be walking around and kind of, doing. He looked. I've never heard his voice or said a word to him, but I imagine as he walked around, he would go like,
yeah,
as like he just had that kind of demeanor. But yeah, that's like the only nickname or epithet that came to mind was Scary Terry. I don't know if the man's name was Terry.
Just his name was Terry because it rhymed with scary.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
He could have been Gary or Larry or Barry or any of the other names of that one character from Parks and Recreation.
Jerry.
Yeah. I guess, they never called him Barry. That's the only one they didn't get to.
Right.
Because his real name was Gary. Mm-hmm. And then it was Jerry. And then it was Larry. And then I think it went back to I
think it went to Terry. And then it eventually came back to Jerry.
Yeah. And it never felt like it made a it never, it was almost never noticeable. Like they decided to start calling him by a different name. And then everyone, including the audience, immediately forgot that his name was ever anything different. Like it just always felt weirdly natural. I should rewatch Parks and Recreation at some point. I don't really have any real desire to rewatch The Office at any point for some weird reason. The Office doesn't.
It went on too long.
Yeah, it went on too long, and there are some things that, like in retrospect, like a person's memory of them eventually kind of gets tarnished a little bit, like. When people point out how weird, especially the beginnings of Pam and Jim's like romances, like how kind of fucked up and not cool a lot of that was.
Right, because she was engaged to someone else.
And like, he was an asshole, but also like there's a lot of weird, uncool, kind of unhealthy things about their relationship. And those did get explored a bit, but like comparably, if you're looking for a feel-good comedy romance, I feel like Leslie and Ben are a much better example. And as far as like sitcom comedy romances go, I feel like Leslie and Ben are probably my favorite. I love the two of them.
Speaking of have you watched The Good Place yet?
I've not watched The Good Place yet. I really ought to.
I feel like that might be his best work.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had never ended up finishing Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Really?
I think I haven't seen the last 2 seasons.
Oh.
But
That's on Hulu, right?
Probably. I think that's what I watched the majority of on.
Gotcha.
I technically have access to Hulu.
Right.
And I've been meaning for such an incredibly long time to get up to date on What We Do in the Shadows. Because I've seen the first 2 seasons of that, and it was immensely enjoyable. And
I've only seen the movie.
The movie's fantastic.
Yeah.
The TV show is, I mean, it's not, I won't call it more of the same because it's different characters in a different situation. And also, many more hours of content because it is a television show, but it is all of the same quality and tone. And also, Matt Berry is one of the best things in literally anything he's ever been in.
Right.
Matt Berry is just one of the funniest people on the planet.
But I really enjoy the IT Crowd. I really loved that show.
That's another classic sort of thing. The IT Crowd, I feel like I have an excuse for not having seen because it was on when I was younger, and also it's a British TV show, so it's a little harder to get access to. Or it was at one point. Now I'm sure it's just on fucking Netflix or something else. But I feel like for a while there, it was like, oh, you had to be kind of an American who was in the know about British TV, right? To know about the IT Crowd. But yeah. I turned into John C. Reilly
just for a moment there.
For a little bit. Oh gosh. I need to. I want to rewatch. Today's the day we're talking about things we want to rewatch.
Right. That's we're nostalgic for things we already know about.
Yeah.
Which is how nostalgia works.
I mean, people do say that every once in a while on certain things. Just like, I feel nostalgic for this, even though I've never seen it before, or something like that. And I kind of get that.
Okay.
I understand that feeling a little bit, where you see something if it's something that's like from a long time ago that you are only now seeing for the first time, and you're like, I wish I had seen this when it come out.
Right. I'm nostalgic for that era. That time when I wish I'd have been young and could have seen this through fresh eyes.
But I missed out on it.
Right.
When it was fresh. I can understand that feeling.
Sure. That's a ton of shit for me. Because I'm old.
Because you're an old man.
That's right.
In your sweater. I guess that's not really a sweater.
No, it's just a thick shirt. It's a collared shirt.
It's a long sleeve collared shirt that is of a material and thick enough that it's verging on sweater.
Right.
You're getting close to sweater territory there. Even though it's not quite sweater time of the year just yet.
It's still August.
It's still August for a little bit longer, for a little while longer. I completely forgotten fucking Labor Day is on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have to, I still got to work on Monday, but
yeah, the summer just disappeared under the relentless tank treads of time. It's like some poor bastard in a war movie that's can't figure out that he needs to crawl a couple feet to the side. He's injured. He's crawling on the ground, and there's a tank coming towards him, and he's just move to the side, buddy.
Yeah, just roll
over to the side. It's you don't need to get chewed up in the tank treads.
Haven't you seen Prometheus?
God, that's the. That so much of that movie could have so easily been better.
Oh yeah,
like a lot of the really dumb stuff in that movie could be really easily fixed and made to make sense. Like there are just a couple little because all the rest of it, I think the set design is really cool.
Sure,
the CGI is pretty good. The spaceships and everything, it all looks good. It all looks good and feels pretty good, except for Guy Pearce's old man makeup. That doesn't look good. That looks terrible.
Right.
He looks like a human ball sack. He looks like he was Dan Aykroyd's double from Nothing But Trouble.
Oh wow! There's a movie I haven't seen in a long time.
I can't claim to have actually seen that movie. I have only seen and heard other people talking about their experience having watched it.
Wow,
and how fucking absolutely batshit insane that movie is on every single level.
Yeah, that is accurate.
It's what happens when Dan Aykroyd is allowed to just do whatever he wants.
Have you ever heard about his... Oh, I think we've talked
his
about...
original Ghostbusters script?
Yeah. It involved the moon somehow.
Dan Aykroyd is like George Lucas, where he is an amazing idea guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot of them. And they are wild and incredibly detailed.
Right.
But you need somebody to say... All right, Dan, thanks for all this material. I'm going to cut it down into something that makes any amount of sense.
We're taking Jar Jar out of the bathtub. Yeah.
We don't need any of this stuff. We don't need this. Hey, George, this complicated plot about how the two guys from the Trade Federation hired a bounty hunter, not an assassin, a bounty hunter to assassinate this senator. Mm-hmm. And that bounty hunter then contacted his friend, who is an assassin, to kill the senator instead of him. And then his friend, instead of shooting the senator through her massive picture window, instead takes a droid that goes over to the window. But instead of the droid having like a bomb on it, it instead has a couple of worms in it.
Right.
And the worms are going to go up onto her bed and bite her. And that's how we're going to assassinate the senator. Instead of they could have just have it been like, oh yeah, Jango Fett just tried to kill her himself.
Right.
And we came to the same result of we found the poison dart. And that's what led us to the planet where all the clones are at.
Exactly.
Even though that part doesn't make a lot of sense too. Like, why a poison dart? Why not fucking anything else? I don't know. Like, there's so many alternative ways you could come up with that would be less weird.
They should have just let Django unchained. I mean,
they should have just unchained Django.
Yeah.
They also, it didn't need to be Django. It could have, like, if we're rewriting the entire prequel trilogy, it's just have it be like 20-year-old Boba Fett. And have Boba have, Boba was like 40 in the original trilogy instead of like 30, which he is now. And that's another weird thing about the book of Boba Fett, which I guess it's partially why, like, he's completely bald after getting all of his hair burned off from the Sarlacc pit. And he's been in the back to tank or whatever. So he's all healed up, but it's like, Tamura Morrison is like a solid 30 years older than Boba Fett would be at that point. It's like Boba Fett was 10 in Attack of the Clones, and that takes place 21 years before the first time he appears on screen in Empire Strikes Back. Something like that. It's like 21 years or something like that. So Boba Fett's not an old guy. He's in the prime of his life. And it's only a couple years later that Book of Boba Fett would occur. So it's like he's not however old Tamura Morrison is. I think Tamura Morrison is in his 60s already.
Something like that, yeah.
I think Tamura Morrison's great. He is
great.
God damn, his voice too. His voice is amazing. The New Zealand accent is also just very pleasing to listen to.
Well, they say that's actually the sexiest accent on the planet.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I think I will say I think Tamura Morrison is one of the only people on the planet capable of making the New Zealand accent sound intimidating.
Right.
Literally, like every single other example of a New Zealand accent I have heard, they always maybe it's just because it's the character of people from New Zealand in general to be affable and friendly.
Yeah.
but it just seems like a very non-threatening accent to have. It's there's something about it that always has struck me as like, oh, they're the Canada of the global South.
Canada, the Southern Hemisphere.
Like they're the Canada to Australia's America. In many different ways,
right.
I think. But yeah, it's Tamura Morrison makes it sound intimidating. I think he's great. Speaking of like voices and stuff, there are two. I like so many because I'm still playing Baldur's Gate 3 because it's an extremely long game,
right?
But there are a couple of voice actors that pop up in it, and just actors in general. But like most of the voice cast is not particularly well known. There are a couple of like bigger name voice actors that pop up there, but they're like voice actor people. And then one of the villains is played by J.K. Simmons.
Really?
And he gives a pretty good performance. And then another one of the villains who gives an even better performance, because every time this actor pops up and stuff in like voice roles or whatever, I'm always like, God, he's so fucking good at like. Jason Isaacs plays another one of the villains, and he is, whenever he pops up in a voice role, I remember like, oh yeah, this guy's like an amazing voice actor. Jason Isaacs, I like whenever I forget about him because he's kind of a character actor, right? Like I forget about him, and then he'll pop up in something. I'm like, oh yeah, he's one of my favorite actors. He's so good in almost everything he's in, and he's his character in Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of like fully putting on the Lucius Malfoy a little bit. Like he's very heavy in like Lucius Malfoy territory, but it also did pop into my head that it's not the first time Jason Isaacs and J.K. Simmons have been together on a project that they've done voice acting for, because they were both on Legend of Korra.
Yeah, they were.
Jason Isaacs. I think it was still Jason Isaacs that did the cameo appearance by Admiral Zhao, because he did. I know he voiced him in Avatar. Yeah, but I think he came back just to do that one scene in Legend of Korra. It would make sense if he didn't, because it was one scene, right? But it's not the first time that they've voiced stuff in a project at the same time.
I still love whoever it was that took the audio
from Whiplash and put it in Legend of Korra.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh God,
you fucking idiot!
You're crying all over my drum set. I want pictures of the Avatar.
You've scared the cat now.
Yeah, I know. It's like, Tenzin, why do you want pictures of Korra? She's right there. But yeah, that's now I want someone to take the audio from Whiplash and put it in Baldur's Gate 3, because that it does actually work for that character. That character is much more like quietly menacing than Fletcher from Whiplash is. Like Fletcher is like way more explosive than General Thorm is, but yeah, his character in Baldur's Gate 3 is extreme, like very villainous, but he's a much like quieter, more menacing sort of villain.
Hey Tenzin, your wife's on line 1. She says I can't wait. She's about to.
We're just crossing all of the streams. What other J.K. Simmons character from? Now I'm just thinking from Juno.
I'm gonna punch him in the wiener.
Didn't think he had it in him. And then fuck it, the yellow M&M's in there too.
Why not?
Sure.
And the what's the insurance commercial?
The farmers.
Yeah.
We know what is the slogan? We know some things because we've seen some things. Is that what it is? I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
We know a little because we've seen a little, or so. I can't. I was about to say it's a good slogan, but it can't be that good because I don't remember it.
Right? Yeah.
So I guess it's not that great.
Yeah,
Yeah, that I remember.
Yeah, of course.
That's impossible to forget. But yeah, God, I keep on seeing trailers for video games, and I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna have to like. I don't know what it is about this time of year, but it feels like the last half of 2023, every fucking game developer and publisher was like, let's put all of our good games in this 6-month period.
Right.
Cause like, I'm not even done with Baldur's Gate. Starfield is coming out.
Sure.
Which I was going to wait to get anyway, because I want to see what sort of condition it's going to be in when it releases, because it's Bethesda. And
I'm sure there won't be any bugs. It'll be completely ready.
Media outlets have been saying it is the least buggy game release in like the last 20 years from Bethesda.
Okay.
Which still means it probably has about twice as many bugs as any other game when it comes out. But
ooh.
yeah, I just want to wait and see. I also want to wait and see like how how in depth is it, like because I've honestly like consciously avoided anything to do with Starfield for some reason. Like I think it's just because I have such a mistrust of Bethesda at this point. Like I so many botched and buggy game releases, constantly re-releasing Skyrim because they love money.
Right. Which I haven't replayed on the new TV.
You haven't gotten Skyrim for your PS5 yet?
No, I have it for the PS5 because I had it for the PS4.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I have it for the
you
PS5.
didn't buy it again.
No, I didn't buy it again. No,
Okay.
I bought the deluxe edition that came with the felt hat.
Yes, the felt hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the shit with Fallout 76 made me just go like, Bethesda has lost my trust officially.
Right.
And I'm interested to hear about their quest design, because that was one of the things that bugged the shit out of me about Fallout 4 is how like simplistic there was very few branching pathways for like how to solve individual quests or whole quest lines. It was just like, all right, this quest line is literally just a line. It's a straight line. You don't have a lot of options for different ways you can solve it. You can't get creative with it. Even the dialogue system, because all the characters were, your character was fully voiced. So you only had 4 options, 3 of which were basically exactly the same thing, just in different tones of voice.
You're saying the same thing. How are you saying it?
You could have enthusiastic, yes, sarcastic, yes, unenthused, yes, or I'm going to leave the conversation so I can come back later to say yes.
Right.
And that really bugged the hell out of me compared to every fucking game gets compared. Every RPG after 2010 gets compared to Fallout New Vegas.
Sure.
At least when it comes to quest design and dialogue. Maybe that's fair. Maybe it's unfair. I don't know. But I feel like it is a benchmark at the very least. I don't think it's necessarily the best. I think there are maybe some other games that have better written RPG dialogue and more quest options. Baldur's Gate 3, I think, is probably one of them. But
like in Fallout 4, you had the can you hand me that pen quest?
Yeah, there's it's
there you go. Thanks.
And the fucking the Radiant quests and the Radiant quests in Skyrim, and it got even worse in Fallout because there were way fewer givers of those quests. So it became way more obvious, this is just a randomly generated quest. Whereas in Skyrim, they didn't feel that necessary. And there was also so many NPCs gave them out.
Right.
Of could you go here and get this thing or kill these things or do that or whatever. And there were so many different, whereas in Fallout 4, there was 4 people and they would all give you Radiant quests, and they would all be, classic Preston Garvey. Another settlement needs your help. I'll mark it on your map, General. I know you're the general of the Minutemen, but you need to go do this yourself because the game developers didn't develop a robust system for how this whole thing would work. They spent all of their time and energy making the shitty settlement building mechanic. Yeah, it's that's another thing. Is I don't care for the settlement building mechanic in Fallout 4. I think it took a lot of time and money away from other parts of the development team that could have been used making the story better or the dialogue better or, you know, a million different things. Like you didn't need to have a base building mechanic.
No,
it's just there to pad out the runtime.
You know what?
Reason.
I have to say, I do love it when you're playing a game and you have about 700 quests active at the same time.
Yeah.
I like to start them and to just never finish.
Never finish a single one.
Yeah.
So I'll start another quest as a treat. It's like collecting at that point. How many unfinished quests can I have going at the same time?
Right. And then once you've started all of the quests, like every single one of them,
game's over. Then you can
uninstall.
You can uninstall.
Yeah.
You finished the game.
Yeah.
You finished the game your way.
Exactly.
That's what matters. But
I'm not going to meet you at that cave. That's not going to happen.
So yeah, I'm waiting on Starfield to see what the consensus is for like what kind of game is it? Because I just I'm curious. Then I thought it was coming out next month, but apparently the release date got pushed back. I thought Space Marine 2 was supposed to come out very soon.
Another game you're looking forward to.
Yes, but I think that has been delayed. I don't know how long. I don't think there's a firm release date for it just yet. And then also another Warhammer 40K game, which is Rogue Trader, which I thought had come out, but actually there's just a beta that is playable.
Gotcha.
But I don't think I'm going to play the beta for that game, but whenever that comes out, I'm sure I will play it because Owlcat, which is the developer making that one, has made a couple of Pathfinder games that apparently are very well liked.
Cool.
So I feel like I'm going to be playing top-down turn-based RPGs for a while.
So when does our what we do on Sundays become a Pathfinder game?
Not until we're basically done with all your characters, essentially.
Right. Which we almost were this past week.
Almost. Hey, nobody died.
Yeah, no, we went on nobody in the party died.
Nobody in the party died.
Many died.
Yes, but nobody important
exactly
died. By important, I mean your character.
Right. In any context, it just seems like a shitty thing to say.
Yeah.
How was your weekend? Well, nobody important died.
Nobody important. Just some disposable people. Don't worry about it. But it's I think I don't know, because it's like I've kind of gone back a little bit of like it's hard to get away from 5th edition D&D just because I've invested so much money in it and so much brain power into it, you know, learning the rules and that sort of like, I mean, I haven't spent that much money directly on it in the last couple of years, just because like I haven't given Wizards of the Coast all that much money in the last couple of years because they haven't put out like a single book in the last couple of years that I have had any use for whatsoever. It's all been stuff that I'm just not interested in.
Right.
And I don't really need. So I have not given them any money, and I don't want to give them any more of my money because they're a shitty company.
Yeah.
But
I was giving them money before they owned D&D.
Yep. Fucking Magic the Gathering.
Indeed.
But when all the shit with D&D started happening over the last year of like people going like Wizards of the Coast has become a really shitty company. Fucking Magic the Gathering players are like become a shitty company.
Yeah.
They've been a shitty company for over 2 decades.
Right.
Like Magic the Gathering players have been getting screwed over by Wizards of the Coast for a very long time.
Right.
And
why is this card worth $500?
It's only just now hitting D&D their shitty business practices.
It's like when you get divorced and you see or break up with somebody and you see her start to date somebody new, and then like a few months in, the guy's like, wow, what a bitch. And you're like,
I mean, I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to let you figure that out for yourself. It's a lesson that you needed to learn on your own. Shall we talk?
I was just going to, before we do,
yes.
I was just going to mention that I was going to, I post this on social media. I just noticed that Dimebag Darrell posted something.
Oh, that's interesting.
A guy who's been dead for almost 20 years.
That's, you know,
you got nothing, do you?
I wanted to make some sort of a joke about zombies or like,
Right.
I don't know enough about Dimebag Darrell to know, like, I think I wanted to make a heroin joke, but I was like, I don't know if Dimebag ever really did heroin.
Yeah, he wasn't famous for heroin, no.
No, I mean, his name Dimebag refers to weed.
Right.
So.
Also, he loved a Blacktooth Grin.
What's Blacktooth Grin?
A Blacktooth Grin, it's, I forgot what, there's three things in it. It involves a splash of Coke.
Okay.
And involves, I think, Seagram's 7 and some sort of, and a different whiskey.
Okay, until you said Seagram's 7, I was like, is he talking about Coca-Cola or cocaine?
Yeah, no, cocaine. No, Coca-Cola. It's a couple of whiskeys and just a dash of cocaine.
You put a little bit of cocaine in there. Dissolve some cocaine into your drink.
Uh-huh.
That's, I'm sure, a great way to use your cocaine. All right, let's talk about System of a Down.
Yes.
Let's move on from that alternative metal band to this alternative metal band.
Would you call this new metal?
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you. Would you consider System of a Down in general or this album in specific to be new metal? Because for me, it's yes and no.
Yeah, I mean, I think they came at a period when that was born. They sort of helped birth the whole thing, but
I think it's one of those things, and you were kind of alluding to of like their sound and like their style of songwriting, their guitar tone. A lot of it is. There's a lot of elements in common with new metal, but it doesn't quite fit the mold of what new metal would really be.
Right.
Like it's part of the same primordial soup, but it didn't solidify into the same thing as new metal.
Right.
Like new metal as it is codified. Like the lack of a DJ on this is one of the big things that makes it like not really new metal.
Hardly any scratching on this.
Yeah. Well, like you know, like DJ elements that's a real pretty big part in my opinion of what makes new metal is some sort of a rap element and electronic something on a turntable or some sort of programmed sound use of little bits of samples,
right? So it feels hip hoppy.
Yeah, like some amount of hip hop injected into the formula. I think is what really codified new metal as its own thing.
Right, and that's not here.
That's not present on this. But from like the standpoint of like some of the songwriting, the way their guitars sound, that all sounds very new metal.
Yeah,
to me. But that's one of those things where I feel like I don't know if it's contentious necessarily. The idea of is System of a Down a new metal band? I don't know if it's contentious anymore. I can see it having been more contentious in the past because new metal has kind of come back around to people appreciating it a bit more for what it was. But, for a while there in the late 2000s and into the 2010s, there was a lot of backlash against new metal of like, oh, this shit sucks. This is.
But then nostalgia kicked in.
Yeah, nostalgia has come back around, much like people's love for the Star Wars prequels. People's love for new metal is rooted in nostalgia. I can't claim I am immune to that because I do every once in a while go back and listen to a few Linkin Park tracks.
Sure.
So.
Well, and they were good.
Yeah, they were good. It's hard to say that they were bad. But System of Down. I feel like is one of those bands where there are so many of my friends who are my age or a little bit older who don't like metal, but almost all of them like System of a Down.
Right.
And it's the same deal with Tool for some reason. like what's the like Lateralis and what is it? 10,000 Days. Is that the album? It's 10,000 something, isn't it?
I think 10,000. Yeah, I think it is 10,000.
Like those two albums get cited a lot by some of my friends who
Never Anima.
Never Anima for some. I think it's too early. I think it was before they kind of hit whatever sort of mainstream sort of success.
It was the one before Lateralis. So
yeah, I think this album as well. I don't see people online in sort of general circles in like mainstream conversations. When people talk about System of a Down, they're almost always talking about Toxicity.
Right.
I see very few people making reference to their self-titled album. And I feel like I kind of understand that from like the point of view of a mainstream sort of music listener. Right. Because this album is, from what I remember, I have listened to Toxicity all the way through, but it has been a long time. From what I remember, this album is quite a bit heavier than Toxicity ended up being. Their style gradually shifted towards a more injecting a bit more of the balance shifted towards more like alternative rock than like alternative metal necessarily. Always weird.
Right. Always very weird.
Always very weird and frenetic. And there's so much energy. I think that's the thing that's always struck me about System of a Down. And it's in the songwriting, but I think it's also just in Serge's vocal delivery. Right. Part of his vibrato almost seems to, in my mind, it provides like a sort of bouncy, sort of hyperactiveness to the performance that makes it sound like he is like shaking and about to fucking explode. And it lends this sort of manic energy to the whole thing.
And he does voices. I mean,
yeah, like there's so many. He's one of those performers that seems to there's. I think there's like there's a couple, theories or ideas of like how to, do vocal performances, let's say, of like, okay, let's be consistent and just deliver one thing and do it really well. Or if you're someone who's talented enough, you can really pull off, I'm going to do fucking everything and it's all going to be insane and it's all going to be good in some way. It's sort of I feel like it's like, I feel like Mike Patton is the king of that. Yeah. Like Mike Patton is the poster child for more is more when it comes to metal and alternative rock vocals. Right. Of like, if you can do everything, like don't hide the that it's one of those things of like I feel like there have been some metal vocalists medical vocalists there have been like some metal vocalists where I feel that, like I've seen videos of them performing like other songs or something like that, and they're pulling off shit that they never do on any of their own material, and I'm like, if you can pull that off so well, why aren't you doing it in your stuff? Right. And maybe sometimes it doesn't fit. Maybe it's, something that people don't expect. But I always feel like if you can do it, give it a shot. And Serge Tankian can do it. The man's got a set of pipes on him. So I referenced at the beginning of the band, they are it is not inappropriate to call them an Armenian American metal band
because they are all Armenian American.
With the I would actually no, that's not correct, because I proved myself. What you said is correct. Yeah. A thing that popped into my head that I didn't give voice to wasn't correct, and I responded to that out loud for some reason. What I was going to say is their newest drummer isn't, but he is actually Armenian American as well. And it's almost like, wow, that's a weird coincidence that all of these guys happen to be Armenian American.
No.
It isn't, though, because they all attended the same Armenian high school.
Right.
Which I forget is a thing. In California, especially, there's a very large Armenian population. And there are schools that it's for Armenian Americans. There are classes that are, the instruction is given in Armenian. It's a whole thing. I didn't know about that until actually I started watching clips from Conan O'Brien's podcast. His assistant Sona is Armenian American, and she went to one of those high schools. She might have gone to the same fucking high school as Serge Tankian. I don't know.
She's much younger than he is.
Yeah, she's a fair bit younger than Serge. But yeah, they all met in high school. And started a band. 1994 is when System of a Down got started.
But they weren't they all in a different band prior to this?
They may have been. I didn't look too deeply into their band history beyond some of the I skimmed, so they very well may have been in a band or different bands before System of a Down.
I should know this.
It's all right. You don't need to know everything. We can all have gaps in our knowledge.
Yeah, well, especially
when you're old.
When you're
an old man. When you're on the way out. And your mind is starting to go.
The lights are starting to dim.
But they got together for System of a Down, and over the course of their careers, it's something that I think they've become very well known for now. But I don't think they were really all that well known for, early on in their career, despite the fact that they had lyrics going back to this album referencing things like the Armenian genocide.
Right.
Their activism for, the Armenian genocide and trying to get that recognized as a genocide internationally.
Right.
They become very well known for that, but they were making references to that all the way back to lyrics on this album from 1998. It's not a new thing. And obviously it wasn't new to them in any of their lives. I remember reading, because Serge was born in Lebanon.
In Beirut. In Beirut. Was he born in Beirut, or did he move to Beirut as a young child?
I believe he was born in Beirut. Is what I was reading earlier today. But all four of his grandparents were survivors of the Armenian genocide.
Right.
So it's something that all of them, as people of Armenian descent, were all very familiar with, and so that's going to end up in their music for sure. But there's a lot of other things, drug use, religion comes up a lot. This is not an album that's full of like songs without substance. It's just the delivery vehicle is so fucking intense and bizarre that at times, like, that is what you end up focusing on, is just like, wow, that was fucking weird.
And their harmonies are great too.
Oh yeah, they're tremendous musicians. What was your experience of System of a Down as someone who was an adult by the time they came onto the scene?
So what happened was I had a friend of mine who's actually older than me, a couple of years. He's a radio producer in St. Paul now.
Okay.
But he was here in Minot on KCJB radio.
Okay.
And at the time I was, I was a really big thrash head. I loved thrash metal and just sort of power metal, stuff like that. And he's like, hey, OJ, you like loud music, right? I'm like, yeah, what do you got? And he started just giving me CDs and shit. It's like, I stumbled all over this. Like, the System of a Down, what the fuck is this? Listen to this. And I brought it back to us. I bought my own copy.
I don't need yours anymore.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm enjoying this a lot.
This is fucking great.
Yeah. But it was a lot of stuff. I introduced him to Fear Factory at the same time.
Okay.
Because we were like little kids trading tapes for guys in their 20s and 30s.
I can definitely see the common thread between Fear Factory and System of a Down.
Yeah.
Of like, if you like System of a Down, you'll probably like Fear Factory,
and vice versa, right?
I think they're bands that have a fair amount in common, in some ways, anyway.
But I had this, and then of course eventually Toxicity came out. I'm like, this was great.
Yep.
Never got to see him in concert though.
and probably
never will.
Probably never will. It's one of those. God, as someone who even doesn't have like a long history with them, it's one of those things where I want it for everyone else who wants it.
Right.
I want it for all of the people who I know will be very excited about it. Like I want there to be a reunion of some kind.
Right.
Because it also doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like anything ended badly between any of them. They just like, oh, we're gonna go do other stuff now.
Except their old drummer had some weird political opinions that he voiced out loud, and
they got rid of him.
Yeah.
But other than that, like the band itself didn't necessarily cease to exist as a unit. They just stopped making music, or at least making music together anyway. Which is one of those things that I kind of hate when like media projects like that are just up in the air for the rest of time, where things are left on a question mark, when it's like, okay, at what point do you call it and just say, hey, we're gonna just put a period at the end of this sentence and leave it at that and say, we're done, we're not gonna make any music, and if we do decide otherwise, it'll be a wonderful surprise for everyone.
Sure.
But we don't want everyone to sit there with bated breath going like, well, they didn't technically break up. They're just on hiatus.
We'd like them to say if the system is down.
Is the system down, or has the system come to an end?
Right.
As the it's that's one of the, it bugs me when that happens. Of just like, just call it quits. Just say the word. Don't leave people hanging for 15 years, and then continually tease like maybe we're gonna do something. Like just do something or don't. Shit or get off the pot.
I would love for that to be the headline that somebody writes about this band.
System of a Down finally shits. After 15 plus years of metal constipation. Finally, they passed. They passed a glorious turd.
Because that's how you want your music to be described after having not done anything for 20 years.
What a glorious turd.
What a glorious turd.
That sounds like a genuine headline that would be written about Primus.
By Primus.
Yes. Yeah, precisely. Our new album is a glorious turd. In fact, we have a whole song called Glorious Turd.
Right.
Where it's the only thing Les says. He just says glorious turd over and over again.
Glorious turd.
Glorious turd. Glorious turd. He does a 3-part harmony with himself.
It's like wiping a marker.
That also, I feel like that could also be either a Residence song or a Captain Beefheart song.
You do realize that premise that Les is a huge Residence fan.
Oh yeah. It does not surprise me in the slightest that he would be a big Primus, or he would be a big Residence fan. We should at some point listen to another Captain Beefheart album. I don't know if any of the rest of them are nearly as fucking insane as
Trout Mask Replica.
Yeah, Trout Mask Replica. I think most of the rest of them are a bit more coherent.
Maybe.
That doesn't mean they are coherent. It just means they are more coherent than Trout Mask Replica, which I have seen paintings done by schizophrenics that are more coherent than Trout Mask Replica.
Right.
Like, you can see the intent there. I have no fucking idea what the intent of that album was.
Right, that was a Jackson Pollock. That was just a.
It's practically, what the hell did Seth Putnam anti-music?
Right.
What he called anal cunt. He called them anti-music.
Right. Or as Laurie Anderson said, difficult listening.
Difficult listening.
Yeah.
Trout Mask Replica is practically anti-music.
We listened to that over the top of, what was it we listened to that over the top of?
Obscura.
Oh, Obscura.
By Gorguts.
Yes, and it kind of worked.
Yeah, it kind of worked in that way of like, if you are completely insane,
right,
then maybe it will work for you. Does this album slap?
Yeah.
System of a Down?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it slaps. Score put together from 6 different scores and averaged out was 85.3, which is pretty good for well liked, reviewed albums. What's your favorite song?
The one that always, it's the single that always sticks out in my mind. That's Sugar. But
Sugar. Yeah, Sugar's a really good song.
But I also like Spiders.
Yeah, that's the other single.
Yeah.
I put Spiders down as my favorite. Sugar was the other one that was the contender.
Yeah.
Spiders, I would say, is definitely the most me song on the album.
Yeah,
It's got the moody guitar in it. It's there's something about it that feels just like, oh yeah, it's
angsty kind of.
This one's for me.
Yeah.
Not that the rest of the album wasn't for me. But yeah, so one of those two you would say is probably your favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think Sugar is the only song on this record that I was actually all that familiar with before listening to this today, because the passage from the middle I've seen it used in like memes of like little animatives, just like, in my quiet room, no music, no lights.
Yeah.
Just anger. Like I've seen that used in like memes. And I was like, oh, that's a System of a Down song. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know prior to today, or?
Well, no, I knew it was, but it was like when I would look at the description of those videos, be like, what is this song? It's like, oh, it's a System of a Down song.
Gotcha.
Okay. What medal are you bestowing upon this, like Mascanada to Chewbacca?
I mean, it gets a gold, I think.
Yeah. I think for me, it's one of those things where it's like culturally it gets a gold. On a personal level, I would probably give it a high silver, but that's mostly because this didn't grab me and go like, you need to listen to everything else System of a Down has ever made. I was just like, yeah, hey, this is good. I enjoy this. I'll never be mad if someone puts this record on. I'll be like, oh hell yeah, I like that. But I'm not gonna be seeking out a lot more System of a Down. It didn't compel me that heavily. Sure. But I do recognize that it's an important album by an important band. Definitely. And it's something that I'm glad to have listened to. So yeah, that's what I have. That's all I got.
That's one of the things I love the most about this whole podcast thing
is that you introducing me to the things that I should listen to.
Right. You should have heard this by now. Even if you're never going to listen to it again,
just listen to it once. Yeah. For me. Yeah. I think it's a good thing, honestly, because I'm one of those people where it's like, if there's a lot of things that I'll probably enjoy, but if nobody puts it in front of me, I'm not going to seek it out. Right. I'm just going to keep doing what I usually do, and I'm going to stay sort of in my sphere of the things that I already know I like, or things that are very close to what I know I like. Right. And I'm going to stay there in my comfort zone, and unless someone's like, hey, listen to this, and that's what you do. Right. So yeah, I think that's valuable.
Same.
And I'm going to do that next week, because you know what we're going to listen to next week?
What's that?
Well, it's going to be September, so it's not going to be a metal album.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it's going to be an album that came out, I think, scant weeks after the last time we talked about a different, an EP that was made by this same group. That was sort of tacked on to an album made by a member of the group. We're going to be listening to The Record by Boy Genius. Okay. Which is the first full-length album put out by the grouping of Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus. Dacus? I'm not entirely sure how her last name is meant to be pronounced, but 3 very talented women making some really good, kind of sad music. Okay. So not all of it's sad, but it's all, it's really fucking good. And I've listened to it a lot this year since it came out in April.
Hey, you've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's good shit. Okay. I like it. So that's next week. It's not going to be a metal album, but we hope you'll listen anyway. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook or the other thing. Z? Is it called Z?
X?
Z? I thought Y?
Y? Q?
F? F. U? C? K?
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things, that other platform. Go ahead and follow us on there if you want to, or just subscribe to our feed on whatever service you're using to listen to us right now. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.